The video we're working on today is going to be adding the factory Shaker 1000 amp and subs to my car, which came with the Shaker 500 system. And theoretically, it should be plug and play, but as I found out, and many of you have found out, that they don't include the wiring harness from the fuse box up here back to the trunk for the power, and then on the head unit they don't include the amp turn on and the right and left channel out of the head unit plug if you have a Shaker 500. What should be the easy part is putting it in the trunk here. Where it fits is right here. The amp cage fits here, and then the sub box fits in front of that. And fortunately, they at least included mounting points, holes. One's up here for the top of the cage, and then one down here, and one down here for the bottom of the cage. And then there's a bolt here for the front of the sub, a bolt back here for the back of the sub, and then there's two up here on the cage for the top of the sub. So I'm going to show all that, but I think the first thing I want to do is mount the uh, amp cage in here because it's got the connections to the wiring, and they're like right here, and I won't have to do anything else with that. So here's what I'm installing. I was able to get this off Facebook Marketplace for really cheap. Here's the Shaker 1000 box, fits perfectly in the trunk. And then here's the amp cage. There's 4 amps for the back 2 subs. There's 2 amps here and 2 on the other side. And then here is the connection to the sub, which those connections are right here. And then this is the main harness where the power comes in, left and right channel leads come in, and the remote turn on from the head unit come in. So there's not a lot of wiring, just like any other amp. And then here is the head unit. I probably won't be using this because I have an aftermarket head unit, but I want to wire it up so that if I did, it would work. And I think it has some special things for the rear subs, but let's look at the back of this here. So this plug here is the one that the sub wiring goes to, the front and the back subs. The front subs, like I said, are in the wiring harness already because I have a Shaker 500, but the other pins are not in that harness, and I'm gonna add the wiring so that this plug will have 8 wires, or actually 6 wires are used, so 6 wires in it that will be used. All right, if you do have the Shaker 500, you would expect to see the Shaker 1000 wiring back here for a sub if they wanted to change it from a 500 to a 1000 as an option, but I guess they wanted to make it hard in at least late 2005 to 2007 or beyond that not include that wiring. So I'm not sure what trick they had to get the Shaker 1000 in there easily, but like I said, there's a bolt up here for the top of the amp cage, and then if you look under here, uh, there's 2 bolts in the floor of the trunk, and they're probably going to be covered uh, with plastic if you don't have the sub, and so mine were, so I poked them out, and that's what the bottom of the amp cage is going to connect to. And then here is the wiring harness that comes from the front, and if you're really lucky, you actually have the wiring that you need right in here and a plug, and I definitely do not have it. So I'm gonna have to add all that wiring like I would on a normal sub. So what a bummer, but that's the way it is. All right, here we are at the underhood fuse box, and the Shaker 1000 uses fuse F6 and F9. So here's F6 and here's F9. So this one and this one. And when I look under there, you can see the pins, but when you look coming out of this harness here, I don't have the right color wiring that would go to the amps, and I believe that the wiring doesn't change color from here to there. I think you might take off this and verify what color wiring you've got there. But if the wiring that comes off of those two fuses is a different color than the ones that go into the amps back there, and if so, you could probably find where they go into the body and tap into those. But from all that I've read, you don't have the wiring at all for the Shaker 1000 amps. So F6 and F9 if you wanted to try to hook it up here, but I'll probably hook it up to just directly to the battery. And this is my representation of how I'm going to hook this up. So I'm going to have the two power leads, and those are 30 amp fuses, which is equivalent to what they had in there, but they don't have wires near that big. So then these are the represent the remote turn on and the left and right channel. So I'll have all that running to the back, and then I'm gonna split the two power wires from the front into 4 wires, because 4 wires go into the harness. And then here is the remote turn on for the amps and the left and right channel. And this is a connector that I got off of AliExpress that matches the connector over here. So on the amps, we've got 2 purple and striped wires that are power, and then we've got 2 pink, like pink and yellow striped wires. Those are power, and power. And then these 3 here are the remote turn on and the left and right channel. And then down here in the middle, you've got 4 ground wires. When I run these wires to this plug here, I'm going to put them obviously on the right pins that match up to this. The remote turn on the left and right channel, and then the 4 power leads into here that match the 4 over here, and then ground wire. That's not going to be the ground that I use, that's just a representation. So, and then the ground wires will get grounded somewhere in the trunk, and that is how it's going to be wired. So hopefully that's helpful, just to see how these Shaker 1000 amps are wired. And this is what you're going to have to do if you don't have any of the amp wiring in your car. Alright, like I said, the first thing I want to do is mount this amp cage into its spot here. And I also mentioned it has 3 mounting points, 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and I already poked the holes in the bottom where the locations are, and in the trunk material. I debated on cutting off the trunk mat here, but because if I need to get to the spare tire, then I'm basically screwing it down. But right now I think that's what I want to do, because I don't think this will uh, sit over the, or it'll lay down nicely. I suppose I could just see what happens here. And I guess I need to be smarter than this. Okay. Looks like I gotta go in at an angle here. And I said they did a nice job of making a spot for it and providing the bolt holes here. But this is what I was talking about. What do I do with the carpet here? Do I just let it sit up there against the amps because the sub is going to sit up here? Or do I try and fold it down underneath and have the subwoofer just sit on that? And maybe that's a better idea, because then, well, either way, I guess the subwoofer part of it is also going to be bolted down through this carpet. So, but I guess it would be easier to take out just 2 bolts and then I can remove this than it would be to take out all 4. So maybe that's what I'll do right now. So I'm just going to, tighten this down here. And these are 13 millimeter bolts. This carpet is not lining up here with the hole. So that's all there is to mounting this cage. And I love how it sits in here out of the way, really. And then access to the connections is right here, the 2 for the subwoofer, and then the main harness that has all the rest of the wiring is right here. So let me get a 13 millimeter socket and tighten that down. Three bolts hold that in, and then the top of the sub box is held in by these 2, and then 1 bolt here and 1 bolt here. And again, I located those and put a hole in the carpet here so that I could not mess with that. And I guess I made a decision on the fly to just set the sub box on top of this carpet. I guess I don't really know whether the thing that I bought actually works, but I'm going to assume it does. Otherwise, this is a waste of time, eh? The grommet is right here behind this thing, and so if I just grab the edge of it and pull, it's very easy. That just goes straight to the interior, and this, I'm just going to poke a hole in here to see where it comes out. But that's all you need to do, and I'm going to run my wire through there. So I just got a punch and I stuck it through, poked through the insulation, and now we're going to see where it comes out on the inside. And there you go. It's right here, right next to this. So that's where the wire is going to come in, and then I'm going to route it over and down over here. So now I just have to put the holes in the grommet, run the wire through that, and put the grommet back in, and we should be in business. So the wire I'm going to use is 8 gauge. There's going to be 2 of them coming through the firewall, so my plan is to drill a couple of holes in this grommet, nice round holes, and then push the 2 wires through this grommet, put it back in, and that should be the extent of the hard part, because obviously getting through the firewall is the hardest, and then the rest of it is just running the wire down to the trunk. So let's see how this looks when I get it done. All right, so I drilled the holes, and this is how it looks. Nice tight fit, so I'm not worried about leakage, and I could definitely put some silicone in here if I wanted to, but I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be sealed enough, so that's gonna work. Let's move to the next thing. So I got the fuse connected, or the fuse part connected to the wire here, and shrink wrap, and through the grommet down there into the body, and then it comes out there, and I have it running inside the kick panel and underneath here with the other wiring, and then underneath here, and under this rear kick panel, comes out over here. I got it running under here, and then back up into the trunk following this other harness. I may or may not zip tie it to that. And then so it comes out, follows that harness, and comes out to here. I guess I'm doing a splitter, so I could probably cut it maybe up here and then go into the splitter, and it'll go into 2 10 gauge wires, and then to 2 of the terminals here, and then the other wire is going to have a splitter go into 10 gauge and go into the other 2 power wires in the harness, and that should do it. Alright, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of videos on how to take out the console, because now we're going to try and wire up the wires to the radio and that harness that I was talking about. So there's 2 hex screws right there. I mean Phillips screws. Take those out, and then you can take out this top piece of the console, and then you can take out these 2 side pieces, and then you have access to the fascia here, and then there's a bunch of, I believe, 7mm bolts to take out of that. And there's also I think there's a couple of connections you got to take out to take this piece off, because that gives you the access to the radio, but let's see how bad it is. Okay, there's the upper console and the 2 side pieces, and then this is what you're left with, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 7mm bolts that you need to take out to get access to the back here, and then I'll show you where the connections are that you need to remove. There's one for this. You may have both of these connected to something, cigarette lighter, and then this piece here has got a funky connection over here, and then there's another one down there. These are the 2 connections. This one is a strange one where it's got some kind of a clamping mechanism, and you gotta push it up. Both sides have to be up to get it off, and mine broke. But if you can push both sides up, and then you can pull it off. And then this side here, the bottom side, you need to open it up and get that pulled off. And then you're left with this. Oh, sorry, and then there were the cigarette lighter and the other buttons on the right side, and this is pre-wired for the left side, but I don't have anything in those. So you take that out, and then you've got 4 7mm bolts for the radio, and if you had your stock shaker, you'd still have the same 4 bolts, but obviously I replaced mine with an aftermarket, but you never know, I may put the other one back in, but right now this is what I've got. So I'm going to take out those 4 bolts, and then we can finally get to the harness that we need to add these wires to for the remote turn on and the right and left channel. And here is the current setup that I've got. I've got the Metro harness here, and as you can see, there's 2 plugs to it, but I'm only using one because I have a Shaker 500 and only one side of the pins in the factory harness has any pins, and that's what I'm talking about. The Shaker 1000 uses both of these plugs if you have an aftermarket stereo, and the Shaker 1000 regular head unit uses both sides. So, but if you see our harness here, there's nothing in the bottom row of pins there, so that's where I'm going to add my wires that I showed you earlier, the yellow, the red, and the black one, and then run those to the back, and those will turn on the amp and provide the signal. So let's unplug this and then see what we need to do. If I can just slide in the pins, or do I need to take out the retaining bar? Alright, here's my makeshift wire ends. The stock harness doesn't have the wires for the Shaker 1000 amps, so I stole these wires out of some other harness that I had. I de-pinned them from there, and tried to get the same colors as my wires here, and soldered them onto the ends. And so now hopefully I'm gonna add these to that harness. This will be the remote positive and the negative, or the plus audio and minus audio. Alright, so here we got the connector, and this red piece comes out, and this is what holds the pins in. And I needed to take it out so I could put the other ones in, and then hopefully slide this back in. And there's a couple of holes here that you need to pry in the 2 outside here. And if you stick the pointy thing in there, and I believe you push out and then try and pull on this at the same time, it should come out. Let's get the rest of it. So now it looks like this. 4 pins in the top. I'm going to try and put the 3 in the bottom, and then show what it looks like. Alright, so now I untaped this red one, plugged it into my output. I don't have a subwoofer output, so I'm just using the audio out. And then on the connector, the red one is the audio positive, and the black one is the audio negative, and the yellow one is the remote turn on. Those were the ones that I showed at the beginning, so that is the connection here. And then I'm gonna run the wires back, like I said, under there and down across the side of the car here to the trunk. and then hopefully we can finish the rest of it back there. Alright, and now I've got it run along that wire behind the kick panel and under here with the other wire under this kick panel, rear kick panel, and then up into the trunk from there. And then there's the power wires. I started putting these connectors on, and that goes in this harness, the one that I showed earlier, and hopefully I put them in the right spots along with the power and ground wires, and then I should be able to plug it in finally. So here's my wiring and the harness plug that goes into the amplifier plug right here, and I got the grounds going here, and I got the 2/8 gauge wires from the front of the car, from the battery, and these splitters into 10 gauge, and those go into the connector. And then these are the amp turn on, the right channel or positive, and the negative audio. So yellow one should be the amp turn on. And so I'm gonna plug this in, attach the subwoofer, and put fuses in, see what happens. Oh, and if you wanted to know the wiring, I blew up some pictures. This is for the amp connector, and these are the numbers on the connector for the one side, and then the bottom, these are the grounds, power, 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 and then these three are the other, the remote and the audio right and left. And I'm just going to try and show that this thing is working real quick. And this is with my aftermarket head unit. So now I'm going to put in the Shaker 1000 head unit that I had when I bought it and see if that works. Alright, what I wanted to do now, just as a final check, is to I have it working with the aftermarket stereo, but then what I want to do is remove that and put in this Shaker 1000 head unit, and just make sure I can go back and forth if I wanted to, and make sure that I did hook everything up right to work with a factory Shaker head unit. So I'll go and take out the radio and put this one in and see what happens. This one also, if you get a radio from 2007, 2009, I believe, this antenna plug here changed. So 2005, 2006 has the older or different or more common antenna plug, and 2007 has this, so we need to have an adapter. Alright, now we've got this Shaker 1000 head unit hooked up. This is the one I got with the amp and subs, and let's see if it works. Fronts are all working. Let's go back here. You probably can't hear that, like I said before, on video, but it's definitely working. Definitely got some good deep bass in there. So I hooked it all up right, and pretty happy with that. Start that one over. And one of the options on this shaker is you can turn it on and off, because oh, here's the option here, and I'd say it does lessen the bass if you turn it off versus turning it on. Turn it off, go back. It's definitely less at the same volume, so when you have shaker on, it's pretty deep. So love it. I'm glad I did it, and that's showing that I hooked it all up right and that we can interchange the aftermarket head unit and the original head unit just by unhooking the harnesses. Well, after all of that work, I finally got it in and connected and working. So the amp rack back there, and then the subwoofer box bolts to that and to the floor, but I don't have it hooked up to that. I showed you a snippet of it working. So basically the wiring is similar to adding a regular subwoofer, but I wanted to put this Shaker 1000 setup in here, and I think it sounds pretty good, and it looks okay back here since it's not taking up the entire trunk, but the trunk isn't big to begin with. That's it. That's the installation of the Shaker 1000 subwoofer and amplifiers in a car that does not have it to begin with.